What you're about to witness is the first few days of a deadly virus taking the lives of millions and how it eventually leads to a severe pandemic. Beth Emhoff is on a business trip returning home from an airport in Hong Kong. She's on the phone with a guy named John whom she's having an affair with. Beth seems a little under the weather but ignores it, thinking it's a minor flu. In the next scene, we see a young man who seems very much under the weather taking the subway home. A young model in London who leaves work since she's not feeling well and is later found dead at her hotel. A businessman in Tokyo who collapses on the bus with people filming him. And the guy from earlier who is feeling worse by the minute. As he's about to collapse, he gets hit by a truck. It's now day 3. A blogger named Alan is watching the video of the businessman collapsing on the bus, which is now viral. He thinks it might be some kind of a food poisoning from fish, and that there should be more people dying from it who were not caught on camera. Alan thinks it's a good story to pursue. We then see Beth, who has returned home from her trip, but she collapses on the floor having a seizure with her son watching as Mitch, her husband, calls 911 and takes her to the hospital. At the hospital, she experiences another seizure, so the doctors ask Mitch to wait outside, and after a few minutes, much to his shock, the doctors tell him that Beth's heart stopped and she passed away. The doctor further adds that he couldn't figure out the disease she had and that specialists will run an autopsy on her. On his way back home, Mitch receives a phone call from their babysitter saying his son is not feeling well. Mitch rushes back home only to find out his little boy lifeless. Unfortunately, he caught the virus from his mom. We're at day 5 now. More and more people are losing their lives, and specialists from WHO notice the rising of the virus. Meanwhile, 2 medical experts are running an autopsy on Beth. The more experienced one is shocked at what he sees and asks the other to notify everyone at the hospital. On day 6, we are introduced to Dr. Erin, who is meeting her supervisor, Dr. Shiver. He informs her that as of that moment, there are 32 cases and 5 deaths in Minnesota, and instructs her to go there, assess the situation, and try to contain the infected cases. Back at the hospital, Mitch is isolated and being tested on as his daughter visits him, worried about her father. However, Mitch doesn't seem to be growing any symptoms of the virus. Erin arrives at Minnesota's health department. She explains how fast the virus is growing to the board members and that they need to start taking precautions immediately, like closing down schools. At the CDC Biosafety Lab, 2 scientists named Ali and David start analyzing the virus samples gathered from Beth. After running a few tests, the 2 scientists are puzzled and can't figure out what the virus is, so they inform their colleague, Dr. Sussman, who is ambushed by Alan trying to get information for his blog. Sussman refuses to give any information and tells Alan to get an appointment if he wants to talk about the current situation. On the 7th day, Dr. Shiver is approached by Homeland Security, who is concerned that the virus may be weaponized by China since it originated from there. Meanwhile, Erin is investigating Beth's interactions at her office. After she returned from her trip, her boss says one of the colleagues, Mr. Barnes, picked her up from the airport, so Erin immediately contacts him and finds out he's sick and is currently on the bus, so she instructs him to get off, stay away from other people, and wait for her to arrive. Barnes complies but blacks out as Erin arrives. In the next scene, Ali is breaking down the virus models for Shavir, saying it was transferred from livestock to human, a mixture of bat and pig, and that the virus is mutating very fast, making it even more difficult to work on a vaccine. Plus, the mortality rate is over 20%, meaning out of every 5 cases, at least 1 results in death. Shiver is at a conference with scientists from different countries. He has sent an epidemiologist, Dr. Lenora, to Hong Kong to investigate the origins of the virus and assess the situation there. Sun Feng will assist her. Ali also says they have not been able to start developing a vaccine since all the subjects they tried the virus on dies very shortly. On day 12, Dr. Sussman has eventually made a breakthrough on the vaccine, but it will still take months until they develop a fully functional vaccine to test on humans. Meanwhile, a hedge fund guy who is trying to use the situation and make money out of it approaches Alan, since he was the first one who noticed the video of the man collapsing on the bus and wrote about it on his blog. blog, which has had 2 million visitors in the past few days, but Alan mostly spreads conspiracy theories. He thinks forsythia is the cure. In the next scene, Mitch is visited by Aaron, who reveals test results show that Mitch is immune to the virus and releases him from the hospital. He takes his daughter and exits an overflowed hospital. Aaron is planning to use the stadium as a place to withhold the infected patients. Mitch is back home with his daughter when her boyfriend visits them, but Mitch rushes to the door, stopping her from opening it since he might be contagious. He doesn't even let the poor guy leave flowers since it might also be contagious. On day 14th, Aaron wakes up with a severe headache and coughing. Realizing she's infected, she calls her supervisor, Dr. Shiver, who assures her he will send help. In the meantime, Lenora and San Feng are watching the footage from the casino Beth was in before she got sick. There we see this guy attending tables and taking the virus from Beth, but Lenora wants to find the origins of the virus. Feng tells her that his village has also been exposed to the virus and that his mother is sick. He says there are rumors on the internet saying the Americans and the French have found a cure and are producing it in secret, but Lenora assures him it's not true. As she's leaving the building, Fen makes a phone call looking sus, and as they're driving, the car is stopped and Feng kidnaps her, taking her to a remote place. He then shows her what is left from his village as everyone else has died. He will use Lenora as leverage to get the cure vaccines sooner than everyone else. In the next scene, Erin is being held at the same stadium she designated for quarantine. She's not looking too good, and Shiver's attempts to evacuate her have been to no avail. Shiver is also informed that the Secret Service is moving the president underground to a secure location, and that they will close the border and use national security to set up a perimeter. If the word gets out, they predict people will go on a rampage, raiding stores, pharmacies, and it will get out of hand. Shiver says if that were to happen, the virus would be the least of their concern. Alan is also infected. He records himself taking forsythia and posting it on his blog, saying if he doesn't die in a few days, you will know forsythia is the cure. Later on, Shiver calls his wife, telling her to leave home and come to him in Atlanta, where he could keep her safe, instructing her not to stop on the way and avoid interactions with people, and definitely not to tell anyone. But in a few minutes, she calls her best friend and tells her she's leaving town because it's not safe anymore. On day 18th, Alan is still alive, which leads to people thinking forsythia is the cure, so everyone storms the pharmacy since they don't have enough of it for everyone. Later that day, Mitch and his daughter are out to buy groceries but are shocked to see chaos as everyone is ravaging the stores, looting and stealing as much as they can. In the next scene, Alan is going home and sees his co-worker waiting at the door for him. She's sick and thinks forsythia is the cure. She's desperate, saying she's pregnant, but Alan dismisses her, saying people raided his house and stole all the drugs. In a desperate attempt, she offers money and Alan promises he will bring her forsythia if he finds any. Back at the stadium, poor Erin is taking her last breaths. When she hears the patient next to her is cold, she tries to give him her blanket but doesn't have enough power in her and she passes away. Dr. Shiver is on a TV program joined by Alan, who claims forsythia is the cure since he had the disease and it cured him, but he believes the government is hiding it from the public in order to make profit. Shiver invalidates the claim, saying the CDC is working on different drugs, forsythia included, but so far there have been no scientific proof to forsythia being a solution. He further advises all the viewers to take precautions such as social distancing, washing their hands frequently, and stay at home. That sounds familiar. Later on, Ellie informs Shiver that there is a new variation of the virus, which is more contagious and even deadlier, with a mortality rate of around 30%. They have been running tests on monkeys, but all the test subjects died shortly after. With all the bad news, governments decide to mandate curfew and distribute ration to people, but everyone starts fighting over it because this is the dark side of human nature. Later that night, Mitch witnesses people entering his neighbor's house and shooting them to steal their supplies. He calls 911, but all the lines are down. Fearing the same thing might happen to his family, he breaks into one of the neighbor's house the next day and finds a shotgun. But when he gets back home, his daughter is missing. She's outside with her boyfriend. As they're about to kiss, Mitch arrives and separates them, telling the boyfriend to go home and stay there. On day 29th, finally one of the monkeys survived the test, after which Allie administers the same shot on herself and visits her father, who has the virus. She takes off her mask and tells him she has found the cure. The government starts mass producing, but WHO predicts it might take 1 year until everyone in the world is vaccinated. After a time jump, it's day 131 and 26 million people worldwide have lost their lives to the virus. We get to see Alan talking with the same hedge fund guy, saying he doesn't believe in the vaccine and that they are being deceived by the authorities. The hedge fund guy says there's no proof of forsythia being the cure and asks if Alan knew about it when he posted everything on his blog. That is when Alan notices he's wearing a wire and the trash guy is looking sus. So he starts running but is apprehended by the authorities for security fraud and conspiracy. The government is doing a lottery to determine which group of people get the vaccine first based on their birth dates. Meanwhile, Lenora is adapted to her life in the village, even helping the children with their education. Feng tells her the government has agreed to their demands. They then go to an exchange location, receive 100 doses in exchange for Lenora, and leave. But later at the airport, Lenora is injected with the vaccine and told that the 100 vaccines used to exchange were fakes. Afraid for the children's lives, she rushes back to the village to inform them. Alan is tested on and it is revealed he never had the virus. He lied and spread rumors on his blog, which now has 12 million visitors and has made $4.5 million for him. One of his followers bails him out and he walks free, still claiming that the virus was a scam pulled by government to make profit. Shiver is given 2 vaccines for himself and his wife, but he uses his vaccine on his janitor's kid. Mitch finally allows her daughter's boyfriend to enter the house since he's vaccinated. He has also organized a prom theme for them to dance since the schools are closed. In the closing scene, we see the origin of the virus, a bat picking up a banana and dropping it while eating. Then a pig picks it up and eats it, getting infected, and eventually finds its way into a kitchen, spreading the virus to the chef, who is asked to take pictures by a customer. The chef goes out without washing his hands, and the customer turns out to be Beth. Moral of the story: wash your hands and don't cheat on your partner.